Hey, want to listen to some tunes?
Video game music is interesting. It has the ability to evoke so many emotions from people. They're directly connected to events in game, the point in time in which you played it, the mood you were in, all that stuff. Like every time I boot up Mario Galaxy 2 and I hear I get rushed with nostalgia. But you could say that for plenty of other music too. Heck, the 5th One Piece opening almost brings me to tears because of the memories I have attached to it. Though unfortunately, in general, surface level music discussion, game soundtracks can get dismissed. Plenty of people I know discard game music as not real music. And while I do agree that it's a different beast compared to popular music you'd hear in passing or on the radio, it's still music. So I've decided to just sit down and discuss some of my favorite video game soundtracks. Now, I know there's plenty I missed, so I guarantee there will be a part 2. But for now, these are my personal favorites. They are in no order, but the final one I'll be discussing is my favorite soundtrack of all time, so stay tuned. Now, this first one is very odd to talk about because I don't play Minecraft. I played Pocket Edition a fair bit way back when, but I never knew what I was doing. I just didn't get into it really. In fact, all throughout middle school, I thought Minecraft was just a stupid trend that wouldn't last. I didn't care about it at all really. My friends, on the other hand, played it a ton, and it's a special game for them. Eventually, Minecraft did die out, and I just forgot about it and laughed when my friends would tell me they still play it. And the memes didn't help with that either. But in 2019, Minecraft came back. All the squeakers rushed to Fortnite and the original crowd returned. It was pretty crazy. I then began hearing more thoughtful discussion towards the game instead of just dumb song parodies. Specifically this video by Liam Triforce discussing the game's soundtrack in great detail. Watching this made me realize that Minecraft is a fully realized game with a truly ingenious concept. It really is an infinite game. It may have credits, but it doesn't end. And listening to this game's stellar soundtrack and hearing people's connections with it made me greatly appreciate Minecraft in a way I never did. The power of the soundtrack is unparalleled to most others. It's filled to the brim with very minimal, soothing, peaceful songs usually led by light pianos and soft synths. Some tracks like Moog City and Chris have a higher tempo, but still keep with the serene atmosphere of Minecraft. But then there are ones that are very subtle, but for a lot of people, they carry tons of emotional weight. Yeah, I'm talking about the most iconic tracks from this game, Sweden, and the song Minecraft. These tracks are beautiful, and they undoubtedly defined gaming in the 2010s. You simply cannot argue that. Millions of people have a very strong connection to Minecraft. One song from the game can evoke one emotion to someone, but a different emotion to another. And I think it's because of how simple and universal these songs are. And even listening to this soundtrack simply as an album, I can feel the emotion from these tracks big time. Plenty of kids' lives revolved around Minecraft in the 2010s. Building structures late at night, watching Let's Plays on YouTube, and for a lot of people, it was an opportunity to make new friends. I'll read comments on the soundtrack, and there's so many heartwarming stories out there. This game and its soundtrack means so much to people, and it made me realize that Minecraft is far, far more than a dumb trend. That's admirable in and of itself. And this soundtrack is just a stellar piece of art on its own merits. The songs have this incredible light orchestral feel that is pronounced but not in your face. Like I said, the heavy use of pianos, violins, and synths create this amazing atmosphere. They sound epic but extremely peaceful at the same time. I love it. But one part of the soundtrack that I really like has to be the disc that you can toss on in the background while you're building something. They're way more energetic than the atmospheric cuts. My favorite has to be Cat. I love its fun electronic sound. It's really nice. Mall is another one I really like for the same reasons. Minecraft simply has a fantastic soundtrack that impacted millions around the world, and I think it stands tall amongst other video game OSTs, and ought to be recognized as a great work of art on its own. So, if I'm being honest here, I don't think the soundtrack is quite as good as I thought it was back in the day. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's great, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. The thing is, while you play the game, they repeat the same tracks a lot, so it can get dull at times, but there are some major highlights here for sure. But first I need to point one thing out. Majora's Mask has an excellent atmosphere. Like, seriously, it's amazing they created such a heavy mood on the N64 of all things. As you explore this world, you'll feel a lot of emotion, whether it's because of the characters, the location, or the music. A lot of this game's soundtrack is very ambient and subdued, which works for many of the locations you visit, but I really love it when the soundtrack gets kind of ominous or even twisted, because Lord knows this isn't your average Zelda game. Take the track that plays during the title sequence, for example. It starts out with a very calm, very light melody, while you see the Clocktown residents going about their business. But then this hum starts creeping in and this foreboding theme plays, letting you know that this game is going to be something else. But on a lighter note, there's of course the iconic Clocktown theme. What I really like about it is how on each of the 3 days it sounds different, each more twisted and uneasy than the last. Each one is great, but I'd say Day 2 is probably my favorite because I like the more offbeat melody. I also love the Termina Fields theme and how it uses a lot of weirder instruments in the background. It really sells the strange edge of Majora's Mask. Some other tracks I really like are Astral Observatory, Deku Palace, Great Bay Temple, and Great Bay Coast. And I remember how I said the ominous tracks were some of the best? Well, look no further than the Final Hours theme. This is just a depressing, droning piece of music that fits perfectly. The world is about to end, and everyone in Clocktown has pretty much accepted that. It's heavy stuff, and I love it. Same goes for the Song of Healing. It's a simple piano tune, and on the surface it almost seems like an uplifting song, but it's soaked in so much dread and ends up being one of the most depressing songs in the game because of that. But again, it does such a good job of creating atmosphere and it makes the player feel something, which is why I like it so much. But I think that's enough sadness for now. Since this game was made in such a short amount of time, they reused several themes from Ocarina of Time, and it works pretty well. They even picked out some of my favorites from the game, like The Lost Woods, now called Woods of Mystery, Lon Lon Ranch, now called Romani Ranch, and Zora's Domain, now called Zora Hall. And due to the similar locations the tracks were used in, they fit in well. A fun fact, I downloaded the entire Majora's Mask soundtrack and put it on my 3DS back in the day so I could listen to it. I liked it a ton then, but now I mainly appreciate it because of how the songs managed to create such a dreadful and twisted mood a lot of the time. Though I could see myself saying that Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda soundtrack, but it heavily ties into my strong emotional attachment to that game. It's my all-time favorite after all, but that's a discussion for a much, much later day. Ah yes, the pinnacle of Edge. But I'm gonna be honest, Shadow the Hedgehog is a tolerable game in my eyes. Sure, it isn't great, but it's playable. I don't know, I like how stupid and ridiculous it is. The 13-year-old edgelord vibe this game gives off is entertaining in and of itself, but the best part of this game is undoubtedly the soundtrack. Sonic games are known for having stellar scores, and this is no exception. It is very different though. In order to match the hardcore vibe of this game, they went for a heavier approach. Gone are the upbeat tunes of previous games. See, this came out during nu metal's last legs, and a lot of that genre's traits come in here along with other genres like industrial. I don't know, I love the sound of this OST. It's filled with plenty of down-tuned guitars, a sludgy slap bass, and some really cool electronic elements that have a more industrial edge. And it all comes together in a great way. These tracks are very fast-paced, as they should be, and have very memorable instrumentation. Check out the chugging riff and harsh electronics of Westopolis. The snappy finger bass of Lethal Highway. The charging electronics of Mad Matrix. The somber tone of Gun Fortress. The groovy meltdown of the Black Bull theme. And sure, a lot of this stuff may seem dated and out of place, but I really like it. This OST just sounds really cool to me, especially the electronic elements. They dance around a lot and have a pretty glitchy feel without being very annoying. I find this OST to be very enjoyable on its own. It's loud, it's fast, and radiates that 2000s edge that I can't get enough of. The vocal themes are pretty solid too. I Am All of Me is a nostalgic one. I used to listen to it all the time on this tiny little MP3 player I had, and I still find it pretty enjoyable today. It's a fun one for sure.
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside and walk for dear life. Do you remember me? Capture you and set you free. I am all of me.
Another one I really like is Waking Up. It's less hard rock inspired and is mostly electronic. I like the loud synths on this one, and it has a nice hook.
Waking up, breaking out. This is what it's like to be free. Rip it up, tear it down. This is what it means to be free. Just sounds.
And yeah, I know that this OST will seem extremely dated to some people, as it does reek of that era of hard rock, but I still think it's pretty enjoyable now. It's a shame that the soundtrack doesn't get as much recognition from Sega these days. But hey, at least we got a great Westopolis remix in Sonic Forces. While I can't guarantee you enjoyment with the game itself, I do very much recommend the soundtrack if you haven't heard it before. Yeah, I'm still on Sonic, but hey, this series is some of the best OSTs out there, so I can't just talk about one. In fact, this soundtrack is my favorite Sonic soundtrack. I touched on why I enjoy it in my main video about it, but I didn't go very in depth, so allow me to explain myself more. And yeah, I'm talking exclusively about the Japanese version. The US version is fine and all, but the Japanese one is so much more appealing to me. Here the composers took influence from a music with major focus on groove, i.e. house, techno, hip-hop, and new jack swing. I just love how much bounce this OST has. It's super fun and lively. Each track fits the general feel and aesthetic of the zones like a glove. They have this dash of funk or groove that's pure ear candy. And while I don't listen to a ton of genres this soundtrack took influence from, aside from like house music, I still love the instrumental style of it to death. I just listen to the house style beat of Collision Chaos. or the smooth, washy hip-hop influenced beat of titled Tempest Good Future. Heck, even the Game Over tune is super groovy. The soundtrack is just an all-around enjoyable listen. It's part of the reason I don't mind an any percent run of Sonic CD from time to time. I think every track here is fantastic in its own right. All the grooves and melodies are so memorable and have a distinct feel. It's awesome stuff. Not to mention, but it holds one of the most iconic tracks in the series, that being Stardust Speedway's Bad Future theme. Its fast pace and charging siren samples make it perfect for a dangerous high-speed race. It's fantastic and continues to be remembered by Sega to this day. I also commend how well all the past, present, and future themes were handled. The present themes are always pretty straightforward, with thumping beats and fun melodies. The past themes are always more stripped back and feel primitive in a way. Then the bad futures have a heavier, almost industrial sound. Like the Palm Tree Panic one legitimately sounds like something I'd hear in an underground rave party. Then the good futures have this lightweight, dreamlike feel, and they're some of my favorites in the game. Sonic CD also pioneered the vocal themes being used in these games, with You Can Do Anything in the Japanese version, and the iconic Sonic Boom in the American release, which is the only edge the US soundtrack really has.
Sonic boom, Sonic boom, Sonic boom, keeps you running faster. Sonic boom, Sonic boom, save the planet from disaster.
I also want to shout out two more obscure tracks, those being the Little Planet theme and the instrumental opening theme in the 2011 version. With Little Planet, I heard it outside the game's context, and it really painted a picture in my mind with all the birds chirping and the more breathy instrumentals. As far as the instrumental opening track, I don't know, I just like the melody and instrumentation. It's super catchy. Yeah, there's no denying that this is my favorite OST in the Sonic series. While I may think the game itself isn't the best, I still come back to it a ton, and the soundtrack is one of those reasons. But we're not quite done with the blue blur for this video. We got one more. Hideki Naganuma of Jet Set Radio fame was brought on to compose music for Sonic Rush. JSR's soundtrack took heavy influence from J-pop, funk, hip-hop, rock, and dance. It made for a really fun, energetic soundtrack that many people, including myself, are very fond of. It's iconic, honestly. But with that said, a groovy, fast-paced soundtrack for Sonic is a no-brainer. Thankfully, Naganuma delivered in spades. Here he not only stuck to the genres that influenced Jet Set Radio, but he also incorporated tons of big beat, techno, and breakbeat, meaning this OST is chocked full of lightning fast, stuttering beats that are perfect for this game's blistering pace. The sampling is very well done, and each track has a different sound to it that makes it all feel distinct. I also love the snappy vocal samples used in the songs. It adds so much spice to the OST that makes it stick out. It really reminds me of 90s breakbeat music, since a lot of groups like The Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers utilize that technique. I absolutely love this soundtrack, from the Latin trumpet sample in a Right There, Right On. The flavorful beat and catchy vocal sample on Back to Back. The ever so funky Ethno Circus. The fan favorite Wrapped in Black, which actually samples Malcolm X of all people. And my personal favorite, Jeje Rocket, with its charging, club-influenced beat and extremely catchy vocal sample. It's perfection. Though what's disappointing about Sonic Rush's soundtrack actually has nothing to do with the actual songs, but rather the hardware it was put on. This game was released on the Nintendo DS, which unfortunately made it sound very compressed. So, along with playing the actual game, since it's really dang good as it is, I suggest you check out the original Groove Rush album. It's all of the tracks, but in much higher quality. I highly recommend listening to it. I'll put a link to it in the description along with the other soundtracks discussed in this video. But I think that's enough Sonic, so how about we move on to the final soundtrack in this video, shall we? This is my favorite soundtrack of all time. It did things that no other soundtrack has. But first, some background. I got into the Mother series freshman year after a time in my life when I was mostly away from games actually. But the Mother series got me sucked back into playing games more often again. They also ended up becoming all-time favorites of mine. Mother 3 and EarthBound are both in my top 5 favorite games. They left such a massive impact on me. With EarthBound in particular, I've only played it through once, like 2 years ago. Yet, I remember that game so vividly. It's insane. In fact, I think about the series every single day, if I'm being honest. But a lot of that has to do with its incredible OST. It is, to put it simply, beautiful. It's so varied in sounds and so many different songs elicit so many different emotions. It's just mind-blowing. I was enthralled by it when I played the game for the first time, and I still am today. I adore this soundtrack to death. I almost can't put it into words, but I'm gonna try anyway. I think a lot of what I said about Minecraft soundtrack can be applied here as well. Except in my case, I've actually played the games, so a lot of the emotions I feel when I hear these tracks hit me pretty hard. I just love the sound font this game uses. It has a very memorable zing to it. It's almost impossible to describe without hearing it, but for those of you who have, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It uses a lot of memorable samples that have this fuzzy, muffled tinge to them that I really like. Again, it's really hard to describe, but I find it pretty soothing. It's also very unique. When you hear a track from EarthBound, you know it. The soundtrack does a perfect job of fitting this game's tone and locales to a T. I could go on for literal hours listing my favorite tracks in this game, but sadly I can't. So instead, here are some personal favorites. I love the horn section in Your Name Please. calming Tucson theme. The grandiose four-side theme. The mellow yet emotional You've Come Far. The ever so memorable Snowman theme, which is also one of my absolute favorite tracks in gaming, if I'm being honest. But like I said, the best part of the soundtrack is the emotion it can evoke. This game is filled with so many moments that get ingrained into your head. EarthBound left such an incredible impression that carried with me throughout the rest of high school. I'll never forget my first playthrough with the game, and a lot of that lasting impact is because of the soundtrack. I listen to it fairly often and use it in videos a lot. I list this OST as one of my favorite albums in general. There's not a single bad song on this thing, and all of them have a distinct feel that's indicative of where they were used. When I listen to a lot of the really calm songs like Tucson's theme or Freed Free at Last, I feel very comfortable and at ease. Few soundtracks do this to the degree of EarthBound. It's quirky, it's calming, it's upbeat, but most of all, it's just beautiful. I know that's like beyond cheesy, but it's the truth. I undoubtedly think the Mother series will stay an important part of my life for a long, long time, and listening to the soundtrack really keeps it that way. I do want to share one story I have with the soundtrack, but it does involve spoilers, so skip here if you haven't beaten the game yet. See, EarthBound took me a while to beat for some reason, so finishing it was a big deal to me. And man, this game's ending is hands down the best ending to a game I've ever seen in my life. It tugged at me emotionally in a way that no other game has. And it's really just because of the music. It's this bittersweet melody that puts you at complete ease. You just saved the world after all. It's simply a magical composition that stuck with me ever since. It just drives the emotion home for me. You're walking Paula home, you say goodbye, and can finally go home with your mom and rest. Then before the credits roll, you hear this amazing tune that caps off the adventure. Right then, I knew I had just finished one of the greatest games of all time.
Mega CD
究極兵器メタルソニック最速にして最強のライバル出現がソニックを熱く過激にする 過去へ未来へ、超音速アクションは時空をも超えた。
Sonic the Hedgehog CD from Mega CD.